is a more difficult one. In fact, this one isn't even a quadratic. This is a cubic function. But let's go over just common factoring. Again, we just did an example of it. We're looking for the greatest common factor of all the coefficients. So quickly off the top of your head, what is the greatest common factor of all three of these coefficients? Anyone know? 4, that's right. We can divide 4 by all of these. Yes, exactly. And instead of splitting it up, let's also look at the variable. What is the variable with the lowest exponent? X to the power of what? Okay, so we don't have to write the 1 in. So that becomes part of our common factor. So essentially we're dividing every term by 4x. So the 4x comes to the outside of our brackets. The other thing I would like to do is if our first term is a negative, I'd like to get rid of that negative, okay? So in other words, instead of just dividing by 4x, I would like you guys to divide by negative 4x. We would like our first term in the brackets to be positive. So when we divide negative 4x cubed by negative 4x, we get x squared. Positive 8x squared divided by negative 4x, we get negative 2x. And finally, negative 16x divided by negative 4 gives us positive 4. Okay? Now, here is a more difficult type question. We'll have 3x 5 minus x plus 2. Okay. So, we need to common factor this. This question looks quite different from what we had before. One thing we might be able to do is to expand it, but I want you guys to recognize common factors here. Think of this bracket as a term in itself. Okay? So, one way of simplifying this would be with a let statement, but you don't have to do that if you can recognize this, but let's put it like this. Let y equal 5 minus x. So I'm going to rewrite this question to read 5x, sorry, that's a 3, 3x times y plus 2y. Okay, of course it's equal to. When we look at this, what can I factor out of both of those terms? Y. We can factor y out of both. Okay? So since we can factor y out of both, y comes to the front of our equation, and we're left with 3x plus 2. Well, technically y wasn't just a value of y, it stood for something. So we're going to plug that value back in for y. When I plug this in for my y value, I get 5 minus x, 3x plus 2. So this looks a little different from our other types of common factoring. Okay? Just to reiterate that, there's another way you could have done that if you recognized it. 3x, 5 minus x, plus 2, 5 minus x. Again, these can be considered a term. So I want you guys to think if I can divide both of these by 5 minus x. That 5 minus x comes to the outside, or to the front of our equation. And we're left with the two terms that are left over, which are 3x and positive 2. So they come down into our bracket. And that would be our final answer. That question is a more difficult type of common factoring.